cities, 300 miles apart, each with its own Midwestern identity. One has the Arch, the other has the Sears Tower. One the Mississippi, the other Lake Michigan. One has a baseball team with 9 world championships. The other has not won since 1908. What these cities do share is one of the longest rivalries in baseball, from Stan the Man to Mr. Cub, the Wizard, and Rhino. Together, these two teams have a history, have made history, and it will continue today. It's a gorgeous fall Saturday in Chicago, and a sellout crowd on hand at Wrigley Field for Game 3 of this weekend series between division rivals, the St. Louis Cardinals and the Chicago Cubs. Hi again, everybody. Alongside Jeff Torborg, I'm Tom Brenneman. Welcome, as always, to Baseball on Fox. The magic number for the Cardinals, Jeff, is down to 1. They know they're going to the playoffs. They just have to try and make it official here today. But this season, they've done it in a bit different manner than they did it last year when they won the Central. They still have a very good offense, but this year they've done it with unbelievable starting pitching.
Starting pitching has been outstanding, but they also have outstanding defense. They had 4 Gold Glovers last year. And when you think about a starting rotation where the fewest wins on any of the 5 starters is 12 and one has 21, they are really loaded. Even though, as you mentioned, they are good offensively, but they consistently do the job catching the ball and pitching it.
Chris Carpenter has won 21 games. A starter today, Mark Mulder, has won 15. They did not have either one of them last year during the postseason. Mulder locks up today with the future Hall of Famer, Greg Maddux.
Oh, man, what an artist. This guy is so special. And when you think what he's going after, possibly 18 seasons with 15 wins, that's unfathomable. This guy is unbelievable. But we have a great matchup because we have 2 different types of pitchers. We have a big, tall left-hander in Mulder, but this guy is a good pitcher and knows how to pitch, and he's a money pitcher. And Maddux is always something special to watch. This would be some game. And the Cubs would rather not see the Cardinals officially clinch here.
Cubs have played very well against this Cardinal team. They've won the season series already. Beautiful day in Chicago. Big crowd. And Mulder against Maddux coming up next. You're watching Baseball on Fox.
This copyrighted telecast is presented by the authority of the Office of the Commissioner of Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without express written consent.
Big crowd on hand at Wrigley Field in Chicago. The Cardinals in town. Always a great rivalry between these two cities. And we take a look at Tony La Russa's lineup for the Cardinals, gunning for their 2nd consecutive National League Central Division Championship today. Lineup brought to you by Taco Bell. David Eckstein in short, Jim Edmonds in center, the amazing Albert Pujols at first, Larry Walker in right field, Reggie Sanders healthy and back in the lineup in left, Mark Rezolonic, the former Cub, at second, and a ladder third of Abraham Nunez filling in for the injured Scott Rowland. Einar Diaz behind the plate, and 15-game winner left-hander Mark Mulder is on the mound. Starting it for the Cubs, 12-12, the future Hall of Famer, right-hander Greg Maddux.
Tommy, at 39, you wouldn't know it. He looks like a youngster out on the mound, and he pitches with an enthusiasm. You can see his numbers. The guy has the ability to make you hit the pitch that he wants you to hit. He's a masterful control artist, always has been. Locates well, changes speeds, a great athlete. He's got 13 Gold Gloves. He also can hit. He's always fun to watch. Even when you see him have struggle during a game, sometimes if you're especially in the other dugout, you're amazed at what he can accomplish with his stuff.
David Eckstein, the Cardinals shortstop, to lead things off. And he looks at a strike, and we are underway. Eckstein, a National League All-Star. His first career All-Star appearance this season in his first season with the Redbirds. Leads all National League shortstops in on-base percentage. And if you have to try and replace Edgar Renteria, they've done a good job by bringing in Eckstein.
Have they ever? And a lot of people in baseball, with Cabrera going out to the Angels, thought that Eckstein was just kind of a, an afterthought. This guy comes to play.
And shoots a 2-strike pitch into right field, a leadoff single for Eckstein.
Tom, one of the toughest hitters when you're trying to pitch to a particular hitter or catch and call a game is a guy that chokes up on the bat and takes a little short swing. And that's what Eckstein does. Chokes up, puts the ball in play, takes what you give him. He doesn't miss many pitches. That's why his on-base percentage is so good, and that's why he makes this club go.
Jim Edmonds hit his 28th home run of the season here yesterday. His 3rd home run in his last 5 starts. There goes Eckstein, and a bouncer foul. Boy, and if Edmonds doesn't swing at that pitch, Eckstein could have gone in standing up. That has always been the one chink in the armor of Maddux. You can run on it.
Yes, you always have been able to. As you see, Eckstein didn't even stop. He had that walking lead and kept right on going. Greg Maddux has made it very clear. He worries about making the pitch at the plate. He will change his delivery to try to keep the runner close, but most of the time he really hones in on the hitter, and he can be burned occasionally on the bases.
Runner not going this time, and it's a strike called on the inside corner. And Maddux ahead of Edmonds, 0-2.
You know, Tom, yesterday I was talking to Larry Rothschild, the outstanding pitching coach of the Cubs, and I asked him, does Maddux ever use a 4-seamer? He says, I don't think he knows how to hold one. It's always a 2-seam mover. You know, most pitchers will throw their fastballs in 2 different ways. As you can see this grip, you can see that if you look in his glove, you see he goes right along the seams, and that makes the ball move. Guys that throw across seams are trying to throw it straight. He never throws the ball straight.
Runner going again, and a tapper back to Maddux. And he throws out Edmonds at first with Eckstein advancing into scoring position. 1 away.
Eckstein got another outstanding break. He had 1, 2, 3, he had 7 steps before the ball was delivered, but you can see Jim Edmonds with 2 strikes trying to put the ball in play, and Greg Maddux threw that sinker away from it, just kept going away, away, away.
Albert Pujols, a .336 batting average, good enough for second best in the National League. Second to Cub first baseman Derek Lee. And Albert looks at a strike. Pujols first in the National League in runs, first in multi-hit games, second in batting average, third in RBIs, and third with 39 home runs. Just another monster year from a very special player.
Yes. Tom, as I watch Pujols hit, it reminds me of what Andrew Jones is doing for the Braves now. They spread out. Their stance is very, very wide. They don't commit as much. People will stand tall. I remember years ago that Gary Sheffield, when he stood up, you could fool him. He spread his stance out. You can't fool him anymore. And that's the way Pujols stands. Look how wide his stance is. He barely strides.
Breaking ball, and Pujols does not chase it. 1 ball and 2 strikes. I mean, when you bring up Pujols' name and what he has done through his first 5 years in the big leagues, the only guy you can compare him to statistically is Joe DiMaggio. And the numbers are frighteningly similar. The next home run for Pujols will be his 200th. He would be the 3rd youngest player to get to 200 home runs in the history of the game. He's only 25 years old. 2-2.
That's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine also his numbers offensively with not being able to run as well as some of the other people. Now, Joe DiMaggio could really go. Now, I never played against him, but my father said he could. But Pujols can steal bases because he's smart enough to run, but he doesn't have that burning speed that they beat out those infield hits. So those numbers are even more hard to imagine.
Grounded foul on the 3rd baseline. Pujols is already just the 4th player in Major League history to knock in 100 or more runs in each of his first 5 years. And he's one of those guys, and there are a number of them out there, who get hits when you really need them. There are some that are the other way, that have big gaudy numbers, but you rarely remember any of the hits that they have over the course of a year. Line right back to Maddux. And the 13-time Gold Glove winner throws out Pujols for the 2nd out of the inning. Eckstein still at second base.
Well, we talked about Maddux. He's 39 years of age, but he's still a great athlete. Now, this ball was a one-hopper and really hit hard at him. And Pujols puts a charge into the ball. And remember how close the pitcher is to the hitter. And Maddux makes this look easy. And as you mentioned, when you have that many Gold Gloves, there's a reason for it. You don't do it because somebody out there in the media likes you. You've done it because you've earned it. That's one of the reasons he's won so many ball games. 317 games in his career. I guarantee a lot of those were won with his glove as well.
Overall, Maddux has won 14 Gold Gloves in his career. He won the 13 consecutively. And now Larry Walker looks at ball one away. Walker playing with a great deal of pain in his neck. Periodically, he has taken a shot of cortisone into the neck, which relieves a lot of the pain, and the Cardinals figure they'll give him one more about a week before the playoffs begin. It allows him to play at least for a short time pain-free.
When this guy is healthy, he is as good as there is out there. He knows how to play the game. He's an outstanding defensive outfielder. He can run for a big guy, and he can hit the ball of the ballpark in any field. This guy is a very special player when he's healthy.
Walker is still the only player in Major League Baseball history to have a season where he hit over 350 with more than 200 hits while hitting 40 or more home runs and stealing more than 30 bases. Did that in 1997 with the Colorado Rockies. Three and one to Walker.
Well, with the open base that you have here, even though you've got Reggie Sanders on deck, he's a right-handed hitter, and as good a hitter as Larry Walker is, and also hitting from the left side, I don't think Maddux is going to give him too much to hit here.
Base hit into right field. Rounding third and coming in to score is Eckstein. And a run-scoring single by Walker makes it 1-0 St. Louis.
Yeah, I take that back. I don't think he wanted to, and I tell you what surprised me a little bit is that they went to go inside, and if you miss out over the plate. This ball was right down the middle. This is not the way Greg Maddux wanted to pitch him here. I really was a little surprised that Henry Blanco, the Cub catcher, slid inside, because at 3-1, if you want to be careful, you better make sure you get it way in there. And that ball was left over the plate.
The Cardinals, it seems, day in and day out, are jumping in front in the opening inning. In fact, they scored more first inning runs than any team in Major League Baseball. 113 of them.
Now, Henry Blanco moves inside, and the ball doesn't get in there. It hangs over the plate, and those are the little things that can hurt you against a special hitter and also against a good ball club. A good ball club puts outstanding at-bats on you. And, of course, Greg Maddux has lived that way. Situational pitching. You hear about situational hitting.
There goes Walker. Pitch taken. Throw to second. And not in time to get Larry Walker. His second steal in 3 attempts.
Now, Tom, what does this tell you? This club has it all but wrapped up. A guy has got a bad neck, and he's still trying to run. That's a competitive instinct. That's what makes this club a winner, and that's why you say, well, maybe one of these clubs, like the Cubs, doesn't have much to play for. Baloney. You play for pride in these things. Larry Walker knows that he can try to steal a base, but surprisingly, with the neck, he did.
Now, Reggie Sanders just came back to the Cardinal lineup on Monday, missed 2 months after fracturing his right fibula in an outfield collision with Jim Edmonds back on July the 15th. Many of you know about all the injuries the Cardinals have had as some big-time players. Walker's missed a lot of time. Sanders a couple of months. Rollins out for the year. He had a good rip at that pitch and fouled it straight back 1-2. When the collision occurred, it didn't look all that bad.
No, it looked like it just clipped his leg and flipped him over, but sometimes that's all it takes if you hit the wrong spot. And of course, Reggie Sanders is a stallion, you know, and you don't mess around with stallions' legs. This guy is a good player. He's been around, been on a lot of different clubs. A quality player, and he's gotten healthy just at the right time for the postseason for the Cardinals.
So all the games that have been missed by the Cardinals opening day lineup. The other two teams in front of them, it's an amazing story. The Washington Nationals are hanging in like they're hanging in with all their injuries. And the Dodgers season just ravaged by injuries. Yet they're 5.5 back in the NL West.
Well, you'll start to see them add up about this time of year. It's been a long season, but a lot of these clubs got banged up real early.
Strike 3 call to Sanders to end the opening inning. A run-scoring single by Walker gives St. Louis a 1-0 lead. Fox Saturday Baseball sponsored by Sprint Business. Sprint Business, yes, you can. And by Chevy. Chevy and baseball, they just go together on American Revolution. Dusty Baker, Chicago Cubs, 2 games under 500. Has split the first 2 games of this series. His lineup brought to you by Taco Bell. Jose Macias at second, Nathan Perez at short, Derek Lee at first. Nomar Garcia-Parra at third base, Jeremy Burnitz at right, Matt Burton at left. Corey Patterson, Henry Blanco, and Greg Maddux to face left-hander Mark Mulder.
Well, the Cubs are going to go after a big guy, 6'6", with great leverage off the mound. He's got a very smooth delivery. And you can see his numbers, 15 wins, nice ERA. This guy can do what he wants if he's around the plate and he's healthy. Very smooth delivery. It makes it, because he's so big, makes his delivery very deceptive. The ball gets on people quickly. Good fielder, both runners well. He's got an outstanding sinker ball. It's in the low to mid 90s, and the ball just sinks. And coming from this size, it's got to be awfully tough for a hitter to pick it up.
2-0 to Macias, and there's a strike. Mulder grew up here in Chicago in South Holland, Illinois. And yet he has never beaten the Chicago Cubs. In fact, they have roughed him up so far this season. Swung on and missed. 2-2.
Well, usually after seeing a pitch like that, now that's what you call almost a perfect sinker ball. The bottom fell out of it. If he keeps the ball down there, it's going to be tough to rough him up. Probably the Cubs have gotten him on days when he couldn't keep the ball down. That pitch you just saw there was a cutter. He throws a cutter into right-handed hitters. A cutter really is a short slider. Just hold the ball off center and throw it like a fastball, and it cuts in. And it really is the pitch of this age.
Out in front of the plate. Diaz out to get it and throws out Macias. 1 away. Mulder in his first season with the Cardinals. Mulder, along with Carpenter, reasons why a lot of people believe that the Cardinals are much more prepared, better armed for a World Series title this year, with Carpenter and now Mulder coming over from Oakland.
And I think that's true, especially when you put a left-hander in a rotation too. That adds a different look, plus the fact that he's a great big left-hander, plus the fact that he's been a very successful one. You put them in there, and Morris has come back healthy. Jason Marquis, Supan, they've got quite a rotation. But they add this big an arm in there is really something.
Ball one inside of Nathan Perez, a .276 batter, 9 home runs, 51 batted in. Mulder took a little time to make his adjustment to the National League. His first 15 starts, he had an ERA of 4.7. Off the glove of Nunez, tries for a cover, but that'll be an infield hit more than likely for Perez. It is a base hit.
Well, as you see this pitch, the ball's down. You're going to get a lot of ground balls from sinker balls, and here the ball's hit hard. Nunez goes to backhand the ball, and it stayed up on him. Sometimes the ball will shoot. You can see he's looking for the backhand. He almost overreached for the ball, and he got it on down on the pad of the glove rather than in the pocket of the glove.
Well, he talked about Albert Pujols and the kind of seasons he's had. This has been a career year for Derek Lee, the National League's leading hitter. He's got off to the monster start. Checks in at .341, 44 home runs, 102 runs batted in, and 4 doubles away from 50 of those.
This guy, I had the honor to be around, the pleasure of watching day in and day out when I was managing the Marlins. He's one of the finest men I've ever met, not to mention ball player. But you know, he looks completely different now, Tom, with this new stance, with an open stance where his left foot is down toward the third baseline. You must remember, he's 6'5", 250 pounds. He used to get tied up. You could pitch him inside, and there was a big hole in there. Well, now with his front foot down the third baseline, it allows his hands to come through the zone, and he has just been unbelievable this year.
Well, you saw the disparity between the first half and the second half. No player was going to continue the kind of run that Lee was on through the first half of the year.
I agree with you. When you think about what he has done, and plus he doesn't have the batters around him that they can not pitch around him. It's like what Barry Bonds went through for a number of years. They didn't want to pitch to this kid the second half.
3-1 to Derek Lee.
You know, on top of all this, he can steal bases. He's a Gold Glove first baseman. And the kind of power now, it's almost like when you hear somebody say they unleash power. This stance has unleashed his power.
They're giving him the entire right side of the infield. It's wide open. Well, they're going to send Perez back to the bag. But Grzelcyk only about 10 feet off the second base bag. Eckstein well around, and Nunez hugging the line at third.
I used to watch him play in that Pro Players Stadium, which is now Dolphins Stadium in South Florida, and that ball doesn't carry him.
Pujols picks it up, throws to second, gets he out there. They're saying foul ball. That's the home plate umpire's call until it gets to the bag. Pujols fielded the ball in front of the bag.
Exactly. The umpire's got that perfectly right. That ball was just to the right of that line. Pujols is wondering where it was, but it's where it is over the line. See Albert go for the ball. See where he reaches? That ball is definitely in foul ground, but very good call time. That home plate umpire has got jurisdiction until it reaches the base. But I was starting to say with Derek Lee, he used to hit monster shots to right center field and they would die. And it got to the point where it affected him so much he wouldn't go to the other side of the field. He'd try to pull everything because he couldn't hit it out over there. In this ballpark, he can hit it out anywhere.
There's ball 4 outside. For the Cardinals leading 1-0. And that very much in jeopardy now with 2 on and 1 out. And Nomar Garciaparra coming up.
Now, when we take a look at Garciaparra, he, of course, had a great start of his career with the Red Sox and then had injuries interfere with his last 2 seasons. But since he's been back, he's been red hot. And he fits right into that mold. We were just talking about Albert Pujols and guys with spread stances. Garciaparra, who goes through this little dance every time he goes up to hit, has a wide spread stance, so very often he can't be fooled with breaking balls either.
Strike 1 at the knees. Only 51 at bats before the terrible groin injury for Garciaparra when the season began. And you see post injury, 325 batting. And since coming back, he's been playing third base after they lost Ramos Ramirez. Double play ball here, and the Cardinals do it better than anybody. Getting over. End of 1, 1-0 St. Louis. Sellout crowd on this Saturday afternoon at Wrigley Field in Chicago. And the Cardinals on a Larry Walker 2-out RBI single in the first have a 1-0 lead over Greg Maddux and the Cubs. Mark Grzelcyk, 293, 8 home runs, 53 runs batted in to lead it off.
You know, it's interesting, Tom, when you take a look at this Cardinal team, they take players from other teams, plug them in, and they are all successful within that framework. Give Tony La Russa a lot of credit for doing that in that Cardinal organization. Walt Jocketty does a great job fixing and, you know, fiddling with the pieces and putting them together, and each guy that seems to come seems to fit in. I know they do their scouting.
Rio to Grzelcyk, and there's a 4-pitch walk. Baseball today, tomorrow. Fox NFL Sunday returns with more exciting action. The Detroit Lions look to go 2-0. They'll visit the Bears. And later, Kurt Warner faces his old club as the Cardinals hope the Rams. Plus other regional action. It all begins tomorrow at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, right here on Fox. Joe Buck, longtime voice of the Cardinals, along with Troy Aikman here in the Windy City this weekend. And now Abraham Nunez with a leadoff man aboard. Tony La Russa can't talk enough about the job Nunez has done. A middle infielder, his first number of years with the Pirates. And really a jack of all trades, could play him anywhere, and that was the role they thought he would play during this season. After Roland got hurt, Nunez has become the everyday guy. He beats the throw at first. They cut down the lead runner.
You know, it's interesting what you're saying, too. When you think about, he replaced Scott Rowland, a Gold Glover, a big power hitter, a big producer. Normally on the corners, as you see them turn this double play, and Nunez with his speed beats it out. Derek Lee pulled off the base a little bit. But Nunez has filled in, as you say, as a middle infielder at a power position, and Tony has made it work. That, again, is what the Cardinals and Tony La Russa are able to do.
Yadier Molina feeling a little under the weather this morning. Therefore, Einar Diaz getting the start behind the plate. There goes a runner and a base hit into right field. On his way to third is Nunez. They're going to hold him right there. Throw cut off by Derek Lee. It's another thing about this Cardinal team. With all the power they have, due to the injuries, they're also not afraid to play small ball.
You know, it's interesting. Tony always, as a manager, even when he had those big power, as you see this line drive hit the other way, that's an inside out swing, by the way. It's interesting. A lot of your backup catchers know how to handle the bat. They're down in the order, and you can put these types of plays on, a hit and run. Tony used to put the hit and run on with a Bash Brother team. You know, it didn't matter what kind of team he had. He would make sure he forced the issue at times, and that puts the defense on their heels.
Now Mulder, here comes a squeeze, and look at this, done to perfection. My, oh my. Cardinals have done it primarily with David Eckstein this year, but now they ask Mulder, who did not have a single sacrifice the entire season, to put down the suicide squeeze, and he executes a play.
Well, they're getting ready for the postseason.
Oh.
I put one of those on. In fact, you were probably broadcasting the game or telecasting the game out against the Diamondbacks with a left-handed, as you see him come in, it's perfect, with a left-handed pitcher, Mark Redmond, and the ball hit him in the thumb and broke his thumb. Now, that's when you're not going good. When you're going good, you get it down like this.
You know, we don't want to turn this into a Tony La Russa broadcast, but certainly you have to give the credit where the credit is due. I mean, he is a manager, and there aren't a lot of them, at least I don't think, Jeff, you tell me if you agree, who is willing to make a lot of changes during the course of a year depending on various situations. A lot of teams, they have a lot of veteran guys, and this guy's feelings might get hurt if you don't bat him third. That guy might get upset if you don't bat him clean up. Tony doesn't have that kind of team. They don't want those kind of players around. If you come here, you better realize there's a chance, if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, or it's necessary to move somebody else into a position to get them better or get them right, he'll do it.
Absolutely. And his right-hand man for all these years has been Dave Duncan. He'll do the same thing with the pitching staff.
On the ground is short. Perez will throw out Eckstein, and that'll end the inning. The suicide squeeze from Mulder brings in Nunez after a hit and run, got him to third. 2-0 St. Louis. Fox Saturday Baseball is sponsored by Budweiser, the bright color and crisp, clean taste you'll only find in the king of beers. Budweiser front and center in this ballpark each and every day, going back to the late great Harry Carey. Jeremy Burnitz to begin things in the Chicago second inning. The Cardinals with a 2-0 lead, their magic number at 1. I mean, for all intents and purposes, they've already won the National League Central, because if they were to lose every game and the Astros win every game and they finish in a tie, the Cardinals have already won the tiebreaker. They have dominated the Astros this season, winning 11 of 14. But Tony feels like you still got to nail it down and make it official. And no celebrating until you do.
Well, they know they're going to win the thing. I mean, it's possible, but I mean, it's mathematically possible, but not realistic at all. But Tony's not a guy who celebrates in your face. You know, he's very professional about how he handles his club. You know, the guys that have been so successful over the years, when you think about Tony La Russa, Bobby Cox, an example, Joe Torre, all super professional guys. Don't ever try to show somebody up. Don't get too, you know, over enthusiastic out in somebody's face. Now, Tony has had some run-ins with other managers when the other managers and he don't agree on certain things. Dusty being one of them, Buck Showalter and so on. But very professional in their approach, and that's the way their teams play.
Sounded like a broken bat pop-up that will drift out of play, and Burnitz will get a new piece of lumber. Be followed in the inning by Matt Burton and Corey Patterson. It's been a rough go, really, for the better part of 2 years for Dusty Baker and the Cubs. Meanwhile, going back to when we were here during that 2003 National League Championship Series, when they were 5 outs away from advancing on to the World Series for the first time since 1945. They were the wild card leader very late last season and watched it crumble. There's a base hit in the left center field by Burnitz. While we have a moment, let's check in with Jeannie Zelasco from our Fox Network Center. Hi, Jeannie.
Hello, this is
Jeff. It's amazing coming into Chicago, where you used to manage, of course, for the White Sox. The gloom and doom feeling about that team over on the south side of town from their diehard fans. I mean, they've been the leaders almost the entire season. They've had the best record, still do, in fact, in the American League. Yet now, all of a sudden, Cleveland, 37-15 since being 49-48. The Tribe will play later tonight, 4.5 back. They play here starting Monday night.
Well, this has got to be awful tough on that White Sox team. They've been doing it with enthusiasm and energy. Ozzie Guillen, of course, one of my favorites. You know, I called on him to become a coach with the Expos, and then he became a manager, and even families over. My son is over there as one of the strength and conditioning coaches. The whole coaching staff all play for me. I feel terrible for the way that things are going, but I'll tell you one thing. If anybody can get him out of that mess, it's Ozzie. He's got this infectious personality. He's unbelievably bluntly honest, and he'll let his players know.
High and away to Matt Burton.
But when a lead goes from 15 games to 4.5, and in this town where they've seen crazy things happen, they're concerned. And I know the White Sox players are concerned, but if they can play their game, they've got good pitching. They play the inside game, which they didn't play very well for about the last 2.5 weeks. They get back to that, they'll be okay. But how about their luck? Their luck's not running too well. Santana was scheduled to start Wednesday, and they pushed him back to pitch today against him. They didn't need that.
No.
Well, the Indians like it, but the White Sox are not too sure of it.
White Sox and the Indians have 6 more games against one another. We talked about beginning Monday for 3 in Chicago, then the final 3 games of the year at Jacobs Field in Cleveland. Mulder put 2 on with 1 out in the first inning, got Nomar to bounce into an inning-ending double play, and now Burnitz has began the second inning with a base hit. Base hit right field. Two on and nobody out for the Cubs, trailing 2-0. Here's the Burger King, have it your way, home field advantage, and today we zero in on the ivy on the outfield wall at Wrigley Field. The original vines were purchased and planted by Bill Beck in September of 1937. He strung the bittersweet from the top of the wall to the bottom and planted the ivy at the base of the wall. The ball gets lost in there. It's a ground rule double.
That's unique. You don't think of Bill Veeck on this side of town. You think of with the White Sox or with the Indians or with the Browns and the midget hitting, you know, but you don't think of him here. He's had quite an impact on this game.
Bunted by Corey Patterson. And that'll be a sacrifice, advancing the runners on to second and third. It appeared as though Patterson was doing that on his own.
Well, it's an excellent bunt as you see him lay it down the first base line. One of the things that we're seeing right now, things we were talking about in the beginning of this game, is that Mark Mulder's got to keep the ball down. Well, the 2 base hits that he's given up in this inning, the ball was up. Whenever you got a guy with an outstanding sinker ball wanting to live on that sinker ball and even changing speeds, you want to keep it down, and he's gotten a couple balls elevated a little bit.
Cubs have had a hard time getting runners in from third in these situations this season. And now they're going to run into serious problems. Throw to the plate, the runner is out, and this has been going on, Cub fans will tell you, all season long.
Well, I know some clubs will use a running trick that the minute the ball's hit on contact, they'll go, but not with runners at first and second, not in this situation. And he didn't even go on contact. He hesitated and went back. I'm not sure what's going on. Jeremy Burnitz looked to see where the runner was. I think maybe he got run off by Merton. I think he looked up and saw the runner, Matt Mertens, at second base coming toward him, and he decided he better go.
Only the Colorado Rockies have done a worse job this season in all of baseball of getting a runner from third base home with less than 2 men out. Only 48.5% of the time have the Cubs put a runner at third with less than 2 out and gotten him in. And look at the other teams on that list. The only one really in competition for a playoff spot, the Astros. And they've had offensive problems all year.
Well, you know, you really want to play the inside game. You have to do that to be consistent. We've just talked about the White Sox. When they stop doing that is when they've gone into a slump. Obviously, their pitching has struggled a little bit, too. No team is going to be perfect, but you've got to eliminate your mistakes. You can't keep making mistakes like that and have a chance to win.
Mulder, meanwhile, continues to struggle with his command. He's fallen behind the pitcher, Maddux, 3-0.
Tommy, one of the things you can do as a manager and a coaching staff, you can drill, you can drill, you can drill, you can do it before games, you can do all you want, but once the player gets out on the field, his instincts take over, and sometimes the judgment is not there. And it makes you say, well, what happened? Sometimes they're trying too hard. Sometimes they just have brain cramps. I don't understand. I know one thing. I got a lot of gray hairs up there from watching some of those plays like that.
Runners on the corners, 2 away, 3-1 to Greg Maddux. Full count.
Well, something was haywire in that play because Jeremy Burnitz knows how to play the game. He's always been a good player, a hard-nosed player. He runs the bases hard. He knows how to play, and something happened there. I think he got run off the base.
4th full count for the first 9 batters. And Maddux fouls it away. We'll do it again at 3-2.
You know, we talk about Greg Maddux helping himself over the years with being such a great fielder. He's also been able to handle a bat like you see him doing right now, that he can help himself at times. And they certainly need it now with 2 outs in a situation where it's down to, it's just him, 3-2. He normally puts the ball in play.
Runner from first goes, 3-2, and again fouled back to the screen.
Remember when he was with those Braves team and Glavine and Smoltz, they used to have competition. They could all hit. They were the best hitting pitchers in the league, and boy, does that help you.
This will be the 8th pitch in this at bat. So Maddux making Mulder work and now trying to cash in. Bouncing ball to short. Eckstein will have to play to first, and the inning is over. Cubs put the first 2 on, fail to score. They trail 2-0. We're back after a break from your local Fox station.
Congratulates the Cardinals, your NL Central Division champs.
Edmonds, Pujols, Walker against Maddux in the St. Louis 3rd inning. Cardinals with a 2-0 lead. They've manufactured both of their runs. Conversation going on in between innings between third base coach Chris Spire and the rookie left fielder Matt Merton. Merton was a guy who broke from second to third, forcing Burnitz to try and come to the plate. That ball in the air, left center field against C. Ivy, and it's up against C. Ivy. And pulling in with a double to begin the third is Edmonds. Not sure what happened on that ball by Patterson. The ball hit the ivy coming down, and it's only an 11-foot wall out there, and the top foot and a half of that is covered up by the basket.
You know what happens sometimes out here is the fact that the basket overhangs, as you say, on some of these high fly balls. You think it's going to catch in the basket, and it misses it. But Corey Patterson has played this outfield for a long time. He must have thought he had a read on it that it was out, but it stayed in the ballpark.
Grounded down to third by Pujols, and now Edmonds breaks for third. Here's a throw by Lee, and Edmonds in there. Boy, this is just outstanding baseball by the St. Louis Cardinals. All the little things that add up to the big things.
You're not kidding. That we talked about the little things not working for the Cubs, but you see what the Cardinals have already done in this game. Throw across now. Derek Lee has a terrific arm, and it wasn't even close. That's the way the Cardinals have been doing a lot of things to win. It's not just their big power, as we mentioned at the beginning of the game, their defense, but look at the way they run the bases.
Well, they played hit and run in the first inning, allowing Eckstein to get into scoring position for Walker, who knocked him in. Then in the second inning, they played hit and run to put a runner at third, setting up the suicide squeeze. There's a tapper foul by Walker. 1 ball and 1 strike.
Well, everything they have done that we've seen today has been all aggressive. We talked about Larry Walker stealing second base. We talked about before he even came to the plate that he's got a bad neck. Well, you would think with them almost, well, they really do have it clinched, but he would shut it down for a while. That's not the way they play.
Line into right center field, another hit and another RBI for Larry Walker. This one will score Edmonds, and it's 3-0 St. Louis.
I think he broke his bat in this, but it doesn't matter. He's so strong he could force it out of there. I think that bat is broken, and I think Greg Maddux wanted to get that ball in on him. Again, remember the last at bat he got a base hit on a ball he didn't get in on him. That used to be the book on Larry, that you had to move the ball in and out, but yeah, I believe he broke his bat on that ball. Had a funny sound, but your big power hitters, even with a broken bat, can drive the ball a little ways, and that's why you have to play deeper for them, and they get a lot of base hits in front of the outfielders.
Walker stole second base, as Jeff alluded to a moment ago, back in the first inning, and may be on the move again. Sanders struck out looking, ending the Cardinal first.
You know, Tom, you and I were talking before the game with Dusty Baker about how managers and clubs go about preparing for the postseason. One of the things you got to guard against is shutting it down, because sometimes you can't get it started again. So it's got to be a nice feel of how you play your guys. Rest them maybe a little bit here, but don't hold them back. That's one of the things. You got to let them play. Sometimes that has been the saying, I'm sure, in sports for a long time. If you play it halfway, that's when you get hurt. If you play it all out, you know, then that's what you're used to playing like.
Tony La Russa will become the first manager in St. Louis Cardinals history, as that one is a base hit into left field, to take a team to the postseason 6 times. This will be their 5th National League Central Division title over the last 6 years, but they have yet to win the World Series with Tony La Russa as manager.
Well, they got a good start toward it this year. For them to come back the way they have come back after having been embarrassed in the World Series last year, that is a great bit of managing to begin with. It's not just personnel that wins for you, it's attitude. They went to spring training, and Tony didn't let them even think about last year. But I've been on a team that was swept with the Dodgers in 1966. We didn't recover for years. That takes, well, of course, Sandy Koufax retired too. That had something to do with it. But it's an attitude, and they just keep playing and playing hard. But this might be the year for them.
Walker continues to extend his lead and draws the attention of Maddux out there at second base.
You know, you were talking about Tony La Russa. You remember in '83 with the White Sox, they finished like 20-some games ahead when they won, and they got beaten in the playoffs by Baltimore. And they said, well, they didn't have a good year. Well, they did have a good year. In a short series, you never know what's going to happen. And, of course, then Tony had those outstanding teams in Oakland. I wish back in 1990 when I was with the White Sox, we won 94 games, but there was no wild card. They won 103 in the same division. And, of course, in '90, they lost in 4 straight to Cincinnati, but they had won the '89 series against the Giants.
Of course, that is still the only World Series title for La Russa, who passed Sparky Anderson in managerial wins a couple of weeks ago. But Anderson won 3 World Series, 2 in Cincinnati, 1 in Detroit. Tony's only title came in '89, the earthquake-marred World Series against their Bay Area rivals in San Francisco. They lost in '88 to the Dodgers. A's were heavily favored that year, as they were in '90 against the Reds, swept by Cincinnati, and then swept last year by Boston. One to Grzelcyk. Back to the mound, could be 2. There's 1, and that's a double play. Cardinals have scored a run in each of the first 3 innings and lead 3-0. We caught up with Tony La Russa in between innings and posed the question, how has he managed to keep this team so focused with such a big lead?
Well, I think we wanted to stress the positive. You know, there was a chance that we could dwell on losing 4 in a row and forget all the great things that 04 club did to get into the World Series. So we really tried to focus on the good things we did and understand realistically that we mugged the World Series, at least didn't make a better competition of that, not taking anything away from the Red Sox. And, you know, to have another shot, there are a lot of games that had to be won. So we would just try to pay attention to what we had to do right.
Tony, thanks for the time.
Okay.
Andy Baker a moment ago, we talked to him about all the injuries and how he's tried to stay his club on the course.
Well, I mean, actually, it's you know, it's a season of being constantly tested, and you know, I hate to see my trainer come in because whenever he comes to my office, he might got somebody else going on the shelf. But you know, it's been a tough year. But you know, you just got to play, and you know, that's what we're getting paid to do. Our guys haven't complained, haven't alibied or anything. They're just playing. We're not playing too well today. They're kind of taking it to us, you know, from the very beginning.
Dusty, some of the best managers do is when they're in losing situations, not the winning ones. You've kept these guys playing with all the injuries to keep folks.
Well, you know, like I stressed to them, you know, that you know, you owe it to the game, you owe it to yourself and your family, and you owe it to the fans that pay their money to come out here and see you. And you know, if there's a game to play, no matter where you are in the standings, you know, you play to win. And you know, that's when your competitive juices, you know, come out, you know, in a person the best. So you just got to compete. Go out there and compete. And we got a guy on the mound today, Greg Maddux. No matter what the situation or the game is, this guy is going to play hard no matter what game he's playing.
Dusty, thanks for the time.
All right, thank you.
Welcome back to Wrigley Field in Chicago. The Cardinals bat in the top of the 6th inning with a 3-0 lead over Greg Maddux and the Cubs. Reggie Sanders fouls it away, down a strike. Reggie struck out looking in the first, single to left field in the third. Breaking ball down and away. Sanders, of course, in his 2nd year with the Cardinals. For 7 straight years, he bounced team to team without wearing the same uniform 2 years in a row. Generally, when you hear something like that, you're thinking, well, maybe good player, bad guy. Nothing could be further from the truth. You won't meet a better guy in the game than Sanders, as it's 1-2. And he has really had an outstanding career. One of only 4 players in the big leagues, active players, to hit over 250 home runs and steal better than 250 bases. I mean, he's in the same category with Barry Bonds, Steve Finley, and Craig Biggio.
Well, last year, for an example, his first year with the Cardinals, he had not an exceptional year, but a very good year.
Perez circles it, and enough on the throw to get Sanders. Today's WebMD Health Update focuses on Michael Barrett. Barrett hit in the head with a pitch 3 days ago. They initially thought concussion. Later diagnosed as head trauma. He's still dizzy. And not quite sure when he'll be back in the lineup. Check out your own symptoms at WebMD.com. It was against the Reds the other night. And thankfully it wasn't worse than it's turned out to be.
Oh boy, that's awful. You can hear that sound, and how many times do you ever see anybody get hit in the front of the helmet? It's always on the side or the back. He got hit up around the insignia. I talked with Michael. There's Michael sitting in the middle today. He said he got a good night's sleep last night for the first time. He just hasn't felt real good. You got to be careful, that type of thing. Boy, there's another fine young man. I had him with the Expos, and nobody tried harder to be a better player because he had been a third baseman. They taught him a little bit, but it took him a while to get comfortable behind the plate. But boy, this kid really wanted to handle a pitching staff and think from the team-oriented standpoint. And he really had a nice year for the Cubs last year, and is close to the same stats this year. But you got to be careful after getting hit in the head. You know, Tom, we were talking before about Reggie Sanders. Now, there's a piece that they plugged in. Tony La Russa, Walt Jocketty. Last year, he had 22 home runs, 67 RBIs, 21 stolen bases. That's that total picture. Speed, defend, power.
Breaking ball in the dirt. They appeal on the check swing, and no. 2-2 on Bresolano.
That's one of the things when you manage in the National League, you really think about when you're putting your club together, obviously your bench, but you want a well-rounded team. You want to be able to run a little bit and obviously defend the field.
Well, they've been bringing players up and down from the minor leagues. They've got tremendous contributions from Mabry and Rodriguez, among others. Talked about the infield and Nunez and what he's done. So Taguchi in the outfield, a lot of playing time. Bat goes flying into the first row. Bresolano out on strikes. But thank God that didn't hit somebody. I mean, that was right there in the front row where they have a little shield up in front of those fans where the screen comes to an end leading up to the dugout.
Now, Maddux can make it look bad, and especially fool you with a breaking ball. That's a breaking ball, and you try to reach out for it, and you lose the grip on the bat with your top hand, and now it slips out of your bottom hand. You can see Bresolano very worried about where that bat went, and you're right, it hit just on that glass, just above that wall. Boy, that could decapitate somebody down there.
Ball 1 to Nunez. Play a ball and a strike.
You know what happens in a bat like that? You know where he's going to go with the ball. Mark played second base behind him last year, so he knows where he's going to go when he's behind an account. But what Maddux does, he goes a little farther away. So now you reach out, and by the time you swing at it, it's a foot off the plate. But, oh, it could be frustrating. But this guy's a master at moving the ball around.
Really settling into a pretty nice groove here is Maddux. He allowed 6 hits and 3 runs through the front 3. And now an out away from getting through the next 3 with just 1 hit given up, which he will do. Lead to the bag. Cubs bat last of the 6th inning, trailing 3-0.
Well,
Fox Saturday Baseball sponsored by WebMD, America's health site. By Burger King, who reminds you to have it your way. By Goodyear Forterra, tough on the outside, soft on the inside. And by GMC Trucks and SUVs, we are professional grade. Mark Mulder has never beaten the Chicago Cubs. We brought up earlier he grew up in the suburbs of Chicago and has really been knocked around in a pair of starts against the Cubs this season. In 13 innings, had allowed 19 hits and 9 earned runs. But has shut him out today, despite the fact that he's allowed 7 hits through the front 5 innings. So Taguchi takes over in left field for Reggie Sanders. Two and one to Garcia-Parra. Will be very interesting to see how the offseason transpires for Nomar. Cubs acquired him last year, and of course they extended his contract by a year. He's missed almost the entire season with that groin injury. And now the question is, where will he be next year? One away. Garcia-Parra 0 for 3 today.
You know, he had such a great start to his career with the Red Sox, and when he came to the Cubs last year, the hopes were in this smaller ballpark, in the way he can play the whole game, that his game would even flourish more, but the injuries have slowed him down. The problem in this day and age now, the economics, you got somebody who's been banged up a couple of years. A lot of clubs are very, very hesitant to put out a lot of money.
Hammered into right field off the bat of Jeremy Burnitz. Goodbye. Cubs finally on the board against Mulder. Burnitz's 23rd home run. A 3-1 game.
Tom, in Burnitz's last at bat, he struck out on a ball almost right down the middle. And they tried to run this by him, and he didn't get it by him. And Jeremy got the head of the bat out. It was a little bit lower than the last at bat. And left-handed hitters like that ball down, and he got it and drove it out of here.
Mulder has worn out left-handed batters this season. Second lowest mark, in fact, in the National League at 184.
You know, one of the things as a manager, a pitching coach, with your left-handers, you want to make sure they keep the ball away from the left-handers, preferably breaking stuff and otherwise.
Popped up. Foul ground. Pujols out to get it. And let's check in with Jeannie Zelasco for a game break.
It's a foul.
So again, to repeat, the White Sox will certainly do some scoreboard watching, if not some game watching, somewhere in Minneapolis tonight. When the Cleveland Indians team up at Jacobs Field with Kansas City. A Cleveland win, and the Tribe is 3.5 games out of first. And for those of you that weren't with us, many of you in Chicago are well aware that those two teams will lock up here starting Monday night.
Tom, just to get back to what we were talking about, with a left-handed pitcher facing a left-handed hitter, one of the things a manager and pitching coaches would like the left-hander to do is make sure he keeps the ball, the breaking stuff, low and away. If you're going to show the fastball, show it in. Don't get it low and in. And you can run it by at the letters occasionally. Well, occasionally a left-hander say, oh, I can throw that fastball by that left-hander, and that nullifies the left-handed advantage. I've had left-handed pitchers come in. I brought them in specifically to throw breaking balls. And they say, oh, he was looking for it, so I tried to sneak a fastball by him. I said, I could have stayed with a right-hander to do that.
There's a fastball that runs in on Patterson and ties him up. 1-2. Here's another guy. Not a free agent like Garcia-Parra at the end of the year. But you get the feeling that Patterson's days are numbered here in Chicago. There certainly would be a wealth of interest in Corey Patterson. I mean, he has all the tools to be an outstanding player. Strikes out a lot. Really just an average or slightly above average defender in center field, but has never lived up to all the expectations. And he strikes out here. And the crowd all over it, and have been all summer. Home run by Burnitz makes it 3-1. We're back after a break from your local Fox station.
I'm Tony La Russa with the St. Louis Cardinals, and you're watching Cardinals baseball on Fox 2.
Cardinals lead 3-1 after the home run from Jeremy Burnett. Just the third home run to a left-handed batter allowed by Mulder all year. And now Maddux here in the seventh. And certainly with this game today, and you figure 3 more starts from now through the end of the season, that streak of winning 15 or more games in 17 straight years is very much in the balance now for Maddux. One hopper down to third. One away. Time for our Diet Pepsi fan cam. They love their Chicago Bears in the Windy City. Refurbished Soldier Field for the Bears home opener tomorrow right here on Fox. They'll be taking on their division rivals, the Detroit Lions. And for those of you in St. Louis, you'll be gearing up to watch one of your heroes from Super Bowls past, Kurt Warner, now the quarterback in Arizona. One and one to Mark Mulder. Maddux second only to Roger Clemens among all active pitchers with 317 wins. We had number 300 last year on Fox in San Francisco. 4-time Cy Young Award winner. One of the game's all-time greats.
Absolutely. We were talking with him yesterday about it. His stuff is not exceptional. It's never been lights out stuff. But boy, does he take advantage of what he can do. And I'll tell you, if anybody can win 3 in a row, he would be the guy, the way he knows how to pitch. The problem he has is how well the Cubs play behind him. You know, they're not showing a whole lot of offense. They'd really miss Ramirez at third. And as you mentioned, they've made some terrible mistakes on the bases that cost them some runs, because they really could have been in this game, even maybe almost a tie ball game at this particular point. But Greg Maddux, as his manager, Dusty Baker said, is a competitor, no matter what everybody else is doing.
And look at that play by Maddux. Tough throw for Lee to handle. And Mulder reaches safely. Great effort by the 14-time Gold Glove winner.
Remember, he's 39 years old. This is not a young kid doing this, but he's a great athlete. And this is why he's got so many Gold Gloves. And the ball takes a hop on Derek Lee. Normally he would pick this ball. That took a big hop. Probably a strange spin from that jump throw. Boy, that'd have been some play if they picked that one off.
It has scored a base hit from Mulder, just his 9th of the year. No activity in the Cub bullpen. Maddux due up second in the home half of the 7th inning. Maddux wanting to know from his dugout whether or not they're going to hold Mulder on base. Lee playing a step off the bag over there.
Now, one of the reasons you might play behind a pitcher here is that Eckstein can hit the ball that way. You know, he can use the whole field. He's already gotten a base hit to right field his first time up. But I'll tell you why I think they're playing that. They think he might bunt.
And if you keep Mulder a half step closer, maybe you turn the double play or get the out at the minimum of second base. One and one to Eckstein.
I was talking to Greg Maddux yesterday, and I reminded him of the time he stole second base when we played behind him with the Expos. He said, "Oh, I remember when that was." He told me what inning it was, what the score was.
Just fascinating talking about the game of baseball with Maddux. There goes Mulder. And a pitch driven into deep left field by Eckstein. And it's up against the ivy. Mulder being waved around. Here comes the throw from Perez to the plate. And he's safe. How about that? They start the pitcher on a 1-1 count, and Eckstein drives him in with a double. It is 4-1 St. Louis.
Wow, we talked early in this game about being aggressive, but this is amazing. You're doing it with a pitcher late in the game on top of things. But Tony knows that Eckstein puts the ball in play no matter what, and he drills it off the ivy. And Mulder scores. This is a much closer play than you think it would be. This is when somebody gets hurt. Pitcher comes jogging in thinking he's going to make it easily, and all of a sudden the tag taps his foot and he falls down and he hurts something. But you can tell Tony La Russa still got the foot to the pedal.
The fourth time they've played hit and run or run and hit and done it successfully. This ball hammered down the right field line. It'll go to the wall off the bat of Edmonds. Scoring is Eckstein. And the Cardinals, 3 straight hits leading to a pair of runs, have opened a 4-run lead.
And you wonder what that outstanding play that Maddux tried to make before might have taken out of him. Here's the pitch right down the middle. That's not where he throws the ball normally or wants to throw the ball. That oftentimes happens late in the game when you get tired. You don't lose your stuff so much, you lose your command. Now you can see Greg is puffing just a little bit, and he had tried to make that play on that little ball that Mulder hit before, ran over and made a jump pass. That might have taken something out of him.
Sergio Mitre getting loose in the Cub bullpen. And we have a chance to pose our Capital One trivia question. When did the Cardinals last have the National League's most valuable player and Cy Young Award winner in the same season? We'll give you a little while to think about that. And they could very easily have winners in both categories this year. Chris Carpenter on the mound, and this guy right here as the MVP. And that's going to be all for Maddux. Dusty Baker will make a double switch. Cardinals have scored twice against Maddux on 3 hits here in the 7th inning, lead 5-1, and we'll be back in a moment. Jose Macias moves from second base out to center field. Taking over for him at second base is Todd Walker. And now replacing Maddux on the mound in his 3rd stint with the Cubs this season, back and forth from Iowa, Sergio Mitre.
Tom, this kid has a great arm. He's a big, strong kid, but you can see his numbers are not good. More hits than innings pitched, not enough strikeouts for the kind of arm that he has. So in essence, he's learning at the major league level, but down the road he's got a chance to be a pretty good pitcher.
And he's brought in to face Albert Pujols.
Yeah, is that fair?
Go get him, kid. 5-1 game. Cardinals scored single runs in each of the first 3 innings. Cubs got on the board on a home run by Burnitz in the bottom of the 6th, but now 2 more for the Redbirds in the 7th. 9 outs away from officially clinching the National League Central Division for the 2nd straight year and the 5th time in the last 6 seasons. Pujols taking a 2-0 pitch on the outside corner.
Well, the good ones can do that, and that's why they're good ones. They'll take a pitch they don't think they can drive, especially when they're up in the count, and judge the speed a little bit. But watch out now if you get one around the plate.
Edmonds leads at second base with 1 out, 2-1 to Pujols. He takes down low, ball 3. Mark Mulder has only thrown 74 pitches in the game today. Of course, he just scored on a hit-and-run drive by Eckstein all the way from first base, but plenty of time to catch his breath in the dugout. Back to Mitra. Looks a runner back. 2 away. Our comparison of today's starters and their strike percentage, sponsored by AutoZone. 2/3, pretty much for both starters.
You know, it's amazing when you think about Greg Maddux. Remember that stretch where he went 70-some innings without giving up a walk?
Yep.
That is incredible when you think about it.
And it was an intentional walk which ended that streak to Steve Finley. That is the one team, for whatever reason, the Arizona Diamondbacks, that have just owned Greg Maddux.
Really?
He has only beaten them 1 time in his career.
Strange how those matchups sometimes work. You know, the hitters on that club see the ball or what? Or whether they have a good game plan. I've watched him on 2 successive outings where the Marlins ripped him for 6 runs in the first inning. He could barely get an out. Comes right back and wins 2-0 in a complete game the next game. How do you figure?
Walker, the intentional pass. So runners at first and second with 2 men out, and now batting for the first time since coming into the game is So Taguchi. Replaced Reggie Sanders. They just took Reggie out as a precautionary measure. Nothing wrong with it. Just getting his legs literally back under him after being out for 2 months.
That and the fact that Taguchi is a real good defensive outfielder, and I'm sure that the way he has played when Sanders has been out of there has been very pleasing to Tony. He's used him in right field as well as left field. When they put him in, it was a 3-1 game. You're saying, okay, let's not force Reggie any farther than you want him to go, where he might pull something, getting a little tired later in the game. But that's the luxury you have in this stage, too, where you are, where the Cardinals are sitting.
RBI double in this 7th by Eckstein. RBI double in the inning by Edmonds. He's at second. Walker on at first. 2 men out. 1-1 on Taguchi.
You know, when you look at Taguchi, he looks in his face like the bat boy, but he's 36 years of age, so he's had some experience playing, but he's a good player. He's a good spot type of player. 4th outfielder.
This Cardinal team has 9 players that have knocked in 40 or more runs, and they only have 2 players that have knocked in more than 60 runs. The only team in baseball to have more players with 40 or more batted in is Cincinnati, and they're the highest scoring team in the National League. Popped up. Look out here. And Mitre, a nice play.
Wow, what an athletic play that was.
Cardinals get a couple of runs. You're watching Major League Baseball on Fox. Same game, new attitude. Our Capital One trivia question: when did the Cardinals last have the National League's MVP and Cy Young Award winner in the same season? The same guy. The unbelievable year turned in 68 by Bob Gibson. He won a boat. Fox Saturday Baseball sponsored by AutoZone. Get in the zone. AutoZone. By Diet Pepsi, light, crisp, refreshing. By KFC's new flavor station, Be the Boss. Choose your sauce at KFC. And by Chevy. Chevy and baseball, they just go together. An American revolution. Mark Mulder throws 100 pitches, gets 15 ground ball outs, and is in line for his first career win against the Cubs. And it would be a win for the Cardinals that would officially make them yet again National League Central Division champions. Al Reyes now on from the bullpen.
Boy, has Reyes done a nice job. This is his 61st appearance, but 20 fewer hits than innings pitched. He has really done a great job coming out of Tony La Russa's bullpen. He's been around. He's 35 years old. He's been with several organizations, but in this role that he is filling with the Cardinals, he's been very effective.
1-1 to Derek Lee. Hammers one down the left field line. If it's fair, it's gone. It's gone, but it's foul. We invite you to join Major League Baseball in support of the American Red Cross Relief Fund and help those affected by Hurricane Katrina. Please call 1-800-HELP-NOW or go online at redcross.org or MLB.com to see how you can help. Fastball taken high to Derek Lee, 2-2 in the race for the batting title in the National League. Pujols today 1 of 4. Lee is 1 of 2. He's also drawn a walk. And there's strike 3 called, and Lee knew it. One of the fans donating to the victims of Hurricane Katrina to the American Red Cross. Fans donating $25,000 at the ballpark. The Cubs players made a total donation of $210,000. That'll be the total donation. The players themselves raising $185,000. You saw Nomar with his wife Mia Hamm greeting fans as they came through the gates at Wrigley Field over the weekend. And here is Nomar. He's behind 0-2. He's 0 for 3 today.
I think I heard last night that David Ortiz, Big Papi, I think he and Vladimir Guerrero have donated $50,000 apiece, saying that the United States, U.S. has really helped the Dominican many times and they want to help. I think that is outstanding. So often a lot of the things that ball players do behind the scenes are not known, and the ball player so often is perceived as being greedy, you know, always worrying about his contract. That's not true. These guys really care.
One and 2 on Garcia Parra. Swung on and fouled out of play. Well, you can say, yeah, it's a longer season, but the bottom line is you're playing in any given city and giving back to any given city if you play professional sports in any given city. Major League Baseball gives by far and away more money than any other professional sport as a whole in the various cities in Major League Baseball than any other professional sport. It's not even close.
You're right. If you read the press guides of these ball clubs, it's amazing what they do in the community. The White Sox have done so much in the city of Chicago. I'm familiar with that, having been there with them, building special fields and stadiums.
Popped up in the foul ground, and that one is out of play. Of course, Luis Gonzalez of the Arizona Diamondbacks just 3 days ago named the winner of the Branch Rickey Award, perhaps the highest honor for service and community that a Major League Baseball player can win. He played right here in Chicago a number of years for the Cubs. That is quite an award to win.
Yes.
Two-two pitch in the dirt. But there's a prime example of what you were talking about. I think it's safe to say there are a lot of hardcore baseball fans out there that don't even know that Luis Gonzalez just won that award.
Yes. No, I know what you mean. It's just...
They can tell you what he's hitting with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, unfortunately, they can also tell you what his contract looks like. You know, everybody seems to care about that. And obviously that's of interest to a certain degree, what the players are making. But you don't hear an awful lot about what's being done. For an example, George Steinbrenner has done so much good, and you don't hear about it. And you find out later what he and the Yankees have done throughout this country. And it's wonderful.
3-2 on Garcia Parra. Foul ball again. Quite an at-bat here. Reyes against Nomar. This will be the 9th pitch in this at-bat. Saw Wellemeyer getting loose in the Cub bullpen. Cardinals leading 5-1. They're 5 outs away. from a second straight divisional championship. 10th pitch in the at-bat coming up. Reyes delivers, and that is the 5th two-strike foul ball in this at-bat by Nomar.
Reminds you of the old days when some of the players were unhappy with their contract negotiations. There were no multi-year deals. So the guy who could foul a ball off would foul off as many balls as he could because he would cause the owner more money paid out for baseballs.
In the air right field, playable for Walker. Two away in the 8th.
Hall of Famer Richie Ashburn used to be famous for that. If he had a bad negotiation for his contract with the Phillies, he would put some 15, 16 balls in the stands during the day, you know, and then they say, okay, what do you want?
So the 11th pitch at bat comes to an end on a fly ball by Garciaparra. Now Burnitz, who's accounted for the lone Cub run today on his 6th inning solo home run. One and 0 to Jeremy Burnitz. 2 balls and no strike. Not quite the same feel to this series in Chicago over the weekend. Generally, there's a lot of back and forth. Told you about the 300 miles that separate the two cities, but the state of Illinois, once you get down south in this state, you run into a lot of Cardinal fans that are actually closer to St. Louis than Chicago. I mean, there are families that are going at it back and forth. Brothers, sisters, uncles, and grandparents, and the whole 9 yards. And normally it's a pretty wild series inside the ballpark, but the Cardinals have been in front for so long. And the Cubs have now slipped pretty much out of the wild card race. That not the same kind of feel this weekend. Back out of play. We understand Philadelphia scored 5 times in the 9th inning to take a 5-2 lead over the Florida Marlins. And apparently they've done most of that damage against Todd Jones.
That's the first that he's had any damage done to him most of this year. He's been unbelievable.
And there's ball 4 to Burnitz. He draws a 2-out walk.
Tom, to add to what you're talking about, a lot of times the fans don't have the same, there's not an electricity in the ballpark, and yet the players, even though one of the clubs might be out of the picture, the players still, for the most part, still really compete hard. But a lot of times there's talk about taking the fans out of the game, I've heard that said so many times in baseball. That's kind of true.
Dave Duncan out to the mound to visit with his entire infield and his battery of Reyes and Diaz. Their closer, Jason Isringhausen, getting loose in the bullpen. They're going to stay with Reyes to try and get the final out here in the 8th. This week in Major League Baseball history, in 1969, pitcher Steve Carlton of the St. Louis Cardinals fans 19, including 3 in the 9th, to establish a new Major League record. Budweiser, proud sponsor of Major League Baseball. Log on to foxsports.com on MSN keyword Budweiser for more information. Of course, that record would later be broken by the trio of Roger Clemens, Kerry Wood, and Randy Johnson in a 9-inning game.
I think a little bit later on, too, Nolan Ryan tied that record up in Boston, as I recall. There's a lot of strikeouts.
Oh. Swing and a miss by Matt Burton. Well, I don't think any Cub fan will ever forget the 20 strikeout game by Kerry Wood here against the Houston Astros back in his rookie year. I know I had a chance to call the Randy Johnson 20 strikeout game against the Reds in a game he didn't win. Got a no decision in that game. 1-1 pitch. Grounded to the shortstop. And Eckstein, the force out, will end the inning. We go to the ninth. Cardinals 3 outs away from being crowned Central Division champions, have a 4-run lead. Tony La Russa's team comes to bat here in the top of the 9th inning with a 5-1 lead. Magic number going into play today to clinch the NL Central 1. Even though really they've already clinched the National League Central because of the tiebreaker advantage St. Louis would have against Houston. And Tony said we are not going to celebrate until that magic number is 0. They're 3 outs away from making it 0.
Boy, that's a good feeling when you're doing the celebrating, but I'll tell you, when you're on the other side of the field, is that awful? That is one of the worst feelings I've ever had on a baseball field, watching the other team celebrate. And the worst part is when it's over you that they're celebrating. You know, it's not so bad if you know you've done well in your division or something, but when you're the guy right behind him, oh boy, is that awful.
Counted into John Mabry. We were talking to Tony before the ball game about does he have any preference, and of course you get the standard answer all the time, no, we don't care who we play. But Tony went on to say, you know what, it doesn't matter if we care who it is we play, because there's nothing we can do about it. And he's exactly right. He said, you know, a lot of people are, you know, believing it's a foregone conclusion that whatever team wins the National League West is going to get bounced in the first round. And he said that is ludicrous for anybody to think that way. You know, he said, for example, San Diego, I mean, if Jake Peavy, who when he's right, he's as good a pitcher as there is in baseball today. If he pitches 2 games in a series against you, and then all of a sudden they get a big game from an Adam Eaton or a Brian Lawrence or a Woody Williams, who's pitched a lot of big games in his day with the Cardinals primarily, it's no foregone conclusion if that's who they play the opening round. Fly ball in the left field. Merton is there. 1 away. We remind you, tomorrow America's #1 pregame show is back. The guys will take a look at how do you stop Michael Vick, and the Falcons tell us what it's like to play for Coach Jim Mora. Plus the Bengals star Chad Johnson goes 10 yards with Terry Bradshaw tomorrow, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
You know, you were just mentioning about who you play. One of the things about postseason, it's a whole new season. I mean, you can throw out everything you've done to get there. You just, as everything starts anew, everybody's even. And as you said, one pitcher can make a major difference in a short series so quickly.
There's been a lot of talk about baseball going to a best-of-7 format in the division series. We'll see if that ends up happening, but certainly in that 5-game series especially. And really the best example, even though we're not talking about the opening round of a series, but just playoff baseball, Jeff, to echo what you're talking about. If somebody would have told you the Boston Red Sox would sweep the St. Louis Cardinals in a 4-game series last year, you would have said there is no way in the world that that would happen.
Right.
As good as the Cardinals were last year.
You're right.
No chance. And it happened.
Yep. Yeah, you're right.
Back up the middle. Walker throws out Eckstein. 2 away. Let's send it back to Los Angeles. Here's Jeannie Zelasco.
Well, the D-Train was on track for win number 22, and he started the ninth, and then everything just derailed. Bobby Abreu hits the hot shot through Luis Castillo. A double play possibility, but it's not going to happen. And as I mentioned, the wheels came off. 8-2 Phillies. We sit top 9.
That's a play you've seen Luis Castillo make 5,000 times. And now Edmonds hit with a 1-0 pitch.
Yeah, those hurt. They're in around the knees, and you start to say, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? But you try to pitch Jim Edmonds inside. He's got that spread stance, and it's tough when you're spread out like that to get away from the pitch that's thrown hard.
Of course, there was a lot of bad blood last year that Edmonds had with these Cubs. You remember Carlos Zambrano barking about him going into a home run trot.
Well, you sure don't need any of this. Tony doesn't need anybody hurt at this particular point either, not one of his big guns, and that's what's so worrisome when some guys look like they might be throwing at somebody, because then you're going to come back and even the score. That's why the umpires are so aware that they don't want to let that happen. You know, in the old days, that was all taken care of by the two teams. They would make sure they took care of things themselves.
Fastball up and in. Well, that game is not over yet, Jeff, but what could that game do to the Marlins? Already a game and a half back in the wild card going into play today. I mean, obviously it's not going to eliminate them, but yeah, boy, that's a tough one to swallow.
It really is, because that means 2 games against the club that's in front of them, the Phillies. And now they'll have to wait to see what happens with the Astros tonight. But I'll tell you one thing about that bunch. That's a bunch of resilient kids over there, and they've got some, you know, some veterans like Jeff Conine and Delgado and LaDuca that can pull them out of it. But again, they got 2 weeks to go, and they got some great young arms. 9-2 is the score now.
Wow. All the way to the backstop, and Edmonds advances on to second base.
Now, it could really affect them, obviously. That's what you're asking. It certainly could. You go in there and you think about that. You'll think about that late till tonight. But having been around that bunch, they don't seem to get down very easily. You know, young players a lot of times don't get down. Yeah, they just keep coming back. But that could really hurt, especially after having had a sensational game by Dontrell.
3-1. And there's ball 4 to Pujols. So a hit batsman. A walk. 2-1 for Larry Walker here in the Cardinal 9th inning. And perhaps extending the inevitable.
You know, one of the things we're talking about too, we're talking about postseason and how the starting pitching will make the difference. If the White Sox are going to hold on and pull this out, it's got to be their starting pitching that really buckles down to get them down the home stretch, because Mark Burley has struggled a little bit lately. They got a good game out of Garland yesterday. Freddie Garcia's got to pitch the way he can pitch, and El Duque and Contreras, because they've got a pretty good rotation.
Yes, they do.
They just have got to do what they need to do.
One account on Walker with 2 on and 2 out in the Cardinal 9th inning. That one up and in with a fastball. And then got a piece of Blanco behind the plate.
Ouch, you don't need this any time of day, but especially late in the game. Goes down. Oh, that hits the foot. You know, one of those things, people don't have any idea how much that hurts to get hit on a foot. I still have one big toe that is still discolored from 30 years ago. You know, with those foul tips going down. Oh, boy. And if you get hit on and the umpire's doing Henry Blanco a favor. He's going out like he's going to clean up the plate. He's giving a little time, but that doggie's hurting. When you get hit down on that foot, it feels like, if you get hit on the shoelaces, it feels like your arch is going to fall.
Blanco's still really hurt. You can see in his body language back there behind the plate. And then, of course, another foul ball back.
Oh, I shouldn't laugh. You know, the one that used to kill you the worst as a catcher? When the ball hit the hitter, he was hit by a pitch, but it skidded off him, invariably to hit you right in the bicep. And then what kills you? Oh, and he's not even rubbing.
Well, you can see they're even giving Blanco more time.
Oh, boy.
He is really in a lot of pain right now. Ground ball in the hole. Perez backhands. He'll go to first and just does get Walker. So the Cardinals will bring on their closer Isringhausen to try and close out a long summer of baseball in the National League Central Division. Cardinals ready to celebrate, but still 3 outs to get to be crowned for a second straight year National League Central Division champions. Cardinals well on their way to finishing with the best regular season record in the major leagues. This would be their 95th win. But as the Cardinals can recall painfully from last season, finishing with the best regular season record generally doesn't mean that a team will win the World Series. In fact, from 1990 through 2004, only one time did the team that finished with the major league's best regular season mark go on to win the World Series. And that was in 1998 when the Yankees did it. New battery now for the Cardinals. Yadier Molina takes over behind the plate. And their closer, Jason Isringhausen, is on the mound. Ben Grieve, the pinch hitter, is swinging a miss, 2-2.
Isringhausen is a big key for this club. You know what they've got in starting rotation, but you always have to have the guy at the back end you have confidence in closing.
Grieve gone swinging. Our Chevrolet most valuable players. It's been a team effort here today, as it's been all season for the Cardinals. One day it's Bulls, another day it's Walker. Their starting pitching has been the best in all of baseball during the entire year. The big things, the little things, their defense, they have it all. And in recognition of their outstanding play, Chevrolet will make a $1,000 contribution to the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. Chevy, an American Revolution. They've gotten the great contributions from guys that didn't figure to get a lot of playing time. We mentioned some of the names: Rodriguez, Mabry, Taguchi. Nunez has become their everyday third baseman. They're pitching top to bottom, the league's best. Grounded down to Nunez. He gobbles it up. 1 out away. And now the Cardinal faithful, and there are a lot of them here, are ready to celebrate in the Windy City today. Cardinals trying to become just the third National League team since World War II to post consecutive seasons with a winning percentage of over .630. The other two teams, the Big Red Machine of 75 and 76 in Cincinnati, the Braves in 98 and 99, and the Cardinals in 04 and now in 05.
You know, it's interesting. We're talking about all the cogs, all that you have to be a winner. And this is the last piece right here, the closer. Jason Isringhausen, the converted starter from the Mets many years ago with a great big curveball and a lively fastball.
And this should do it. One out for the Pools, and the Cardinals for the second straight time and the 5th time in the last 6 seasons are the National League Central Division champions. Mark Mulder wins his 16th game. And now the Cardinals can finally celebrate. Congratulations to Bill DeWitt, their owner, General Manager Walt Jocketty, all their scouts, their administrative offices, Tony La Russa, his staff, and all the players. This is one outstanding Cardinal team.
It's been an outstanding organization over the years, historically in baseball, and they have really upheld that tradition. This is a very good team, a fun team to watch. And Tony La Russa for his leadership on the field, and what Dave Duncan and he and Dave McKay have been together for over 20 years, what they've done together, exceptional. Deserves so much credit.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll hear from some of the Redbirds and take you into their clubhouse as the celebration will commence. The Cardinals are 2005 National League Central Division champions. Welcome back to Wrigley Field in Chicago, where the Cardinals are, for a second straight year, National League Central Division champions. A 5-1 win today over the Cubs, and kind enough to join us, had a couple of hits, a couple of RBIs, and waited a long time to finally get into a World Series last year. Larry Walker. And Larry, first of all, congratulations. It's been a nicked up bunch this season, yet you guys have found a way to continue to plug away and win every single day. It is an unbelievable testament to this team. What have you guys said to one another down there every year to just continue to push ahead, even with such a large lead in your division?
Well, I think you know, a lot of it goes to all these young kids that came up and filled in for us hurt guys. A lot of it goes to our manager. He makes us go out there and get the best out of us every day, and the guys have been great. Obviously, our pitching staff has been our big plus. They've been going out there and, you know, giving us solid starts day after day.
Larry, this is Jeff Torborg up here. I've seen that act before that I looked at out there today. But you know what impressed me so much? Here you come off a bad neck, and you're stealing a base. Is that symbolic of this club? You almost got stuff sealed up, but yet your guys are still playing it with a pedal to the metal.
Well, it's you know, we had a talk today, and you know, the thing about clinching and not clinching, when do we celebrate and not? It was kind of a double-edged sword. We didn't want to do it too early and look too cocky about doing it. And when the number got to 0, that's where we're going to do it. Fortunately, Houston won last night, so we can celebrate on the field, which is a lot better than doing it at the hotel or something.
Larry, in hindsight, the offseason and what happened last year in the World Series, how much was that World Series a motivator to come back and try to get there again this year?
Well, it's big because it was a 4-0 sweep, obviously, and that's you know, that wasn't what we were shooting for. We wanted to make a series out of it. Boston came in and just took it to us. So you know, we got something to prove this year, and this is the right step. You know, you get 4 times. Hopefully, we can use the champagne to throw on each other. This is step 1 of doing that, which I'm missing out on right now.
We'll get in there right now. We thank you for the time, Larry. Congratulations.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Cardinals win it 5-1. When we come back, you'll hear from Jeannie Salasco and Kevin Kennedy. Congratulations again to the St. Louis Cardinals, already with the T-shirts as 2005 NL Central Division champions. Jeannie and Kevin coming up from the Fox Television Center.
Congratulates the St. Louis Cardinals, your 2005 National League Central Division champions. Fox 2, your home of Red October. This is Fox 2 with a special postgame edition of the Red Zone.
Converted starter from the Mets many years ago with a great big curveball and a lively fastball.
And this should do it. One out for the Pools, and the Cardinals for the second straight time and the 5th time in the last 6 seasons are the National League Central Division champions.
It's a celebration! What's up, STL Hillside? Welcome to a special edition of Inside the Red Zone. The Cards are now officially the National League Central Division champions alongside pitcher Jason Samatachi, who was part of a champagne party in 2002. I'm Rob Desir. Thanks for joining us. Jason, your first thoughts of this afternoon's game?
Great. Congratulations. Just like all year long, they just struggled, beat them up early in the game, and just like in the season, started off early and continually at the end of the season, getting into the postseason. But starting strong, finishing strong, and here we are. If you're in the clubhouse right now, what's going on? How much champagne is being poured out right now? I'm searching for my goggles to make sure that they're on my eyes right now. Yeah, it was pretty fun a couple years ago, and I'm sure there's a lot of champagne on the floor as well. Oh, definitely. I'm definitely sure there's a lot of champagne going on. The Cristal, Dom P, whatever they have on ice, has been chilling just too long in Chicago. But Tony La Russa says he won't pop any bottles until the magic number is gone. It is now Game 3 of this 4-game series. Just like yesterday, the Redbirds jump out to an early lead. Top of the first, Larry Walker at the plate with a runner in scoring position. Singles to right. David Eckstein scores 1-0 Cards. And also, just like yesterday, the starting pitching helps out his own cause in the second. Mark Mulder lays down to squeeze Abraham Nunez across his home plate, and it's 2-0. Cards will take a 3-1 lead into the 7th, and that's where David Eckstein goes deep. I mean, deep. It looks like it's actually going to go over, but it goes into the ivy. Add one more run. Mulder, he'll score all the way from first. I didn't know he could hustle like that. Next batter, Jim Edmonds. Next pitch, he'll hit one to the opposite side of the park. RBI double to right. 5-1 Cards, and that was enough Aflac, State Farm, whatever you want to call it. That was enough supplemental insurance runs. Then Izzy came out and did his thing. The last grounder, and Pujols and the Cardinals clinch the NL Central title for real. 5-1 is the final. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to announce that the Cards are your NL Central champs thanks to the win over their arch rivals in Wrigley at that. The only way it could have been sweeter is if it could have been done at Busch. I'm sure you agree, right, on Absolutely.
That, Jason?
Anytime you clinch something at home, it's much sweeter.
But to do it in Wrigley, and you've played there a couple of times.
That's something else.
Oh, what do you think those Wrigley fans are thinking right now? Like, man, of all people, the Cardinals got to win the title here?
Well, you know what? It's been going on this whole season. Actually, the Cubs have been kind of taking hold of us this whole season, but it's nice to clinch it in their park. And they're doing the same thing they've been always doing. After a loss, they go out and drink. Drink their sorrows away.
Well, they'll definitely be drinking today. Both teams are going to be drinking a lot. Both teams are definitely going to be drinking a lot. All right, stick around. We've got more to come here on Inside the Red Zone. We're going to take a break, pay some bills, and hopefully we're going to try to get you out up to Wrigley and do some things and get in on the celebration. And welcome back to Inside the Red Zone. Joining me is Jason Samatachi. We've been talking about the Cards celebrating their Central Division championship. And now that the Cards are officially champions, now, Jason, we can start talking about the postseason and possible opponents.
Yeah, Tony doesn't like to do that until it's official, you know. So, yeah, you know, we're looking at possibly the Padres, Houston, and Florida, or even Philadelphia.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people are hoping right now that they hope that the Astros take the wild card championship, because everybody would love to play San Diego. I mean, they're under 500, but yet they're leading the NL West.
It's you know what, you want to. They don't really have, well, the pitching matchup is great, always in our favor, and the hitting, the field, it's nice to play over there as well. You know, down in San Diego, but. You have to say, with the experience that we have of going to the postseason, obviously being to the big dance last year and competing against those guys, you know, you got to put the thumbs towards us.
Now, there's also a possibility, well, we just mentioned briefly, that we could see the Florida Marlins in the postseason when it begins. Should Houston not win the wild card, we could be seeing, you know, Dontrell Willis and
D-Train, I tell you what,
and Beckett and...
It's going to be tough. I'm afraid for Houston. I mean, they got 3 guys that have. I don't think they got 3 ERAs. One's in the ones, and the other 2 are in less than 2.5. They got 3 pitchers that are outstanding, no doubt about it. And that's going to be tough if we end up facing Houston somewhere.
How about Philadelphia? Now, Philadelphia, they're making a strong case. They're playing great baseball right now. I think they're only a half game behind. Houston.
You know what? Yeah, but. Towards the end of the season, they have one of obviously the best closers in the game with Wagner, but You look at the pitching staff, again, you match them up. The guys, considering how many innings they've pitched, they haven't pitched, they pitched a lot, considering in their career. Now, you know, towards the end of the season, I'm hoping that they're going to taper off a little bit.
Well, no matter who they play, one thing's for sure, that all these teams that we mentioned all have losing records on the road. But here's a look at the wild card standings entering the day. The Stros have a half-game lead on the Phillies, as I mentioned. Houston is hosting Milwaukee this weekend. Philly is in Florida, who sit just a game back of the Phillies. Let's not forget about Washington, but the Brewers, Cubs, and Mets, while still mathematically in, appear to be out of contention. So we won't even talk about those teams, especially not the Cubs. All right, we're going to try to get you out to the Windy City for some celebration vids. The Cards are champs. Break out the T-shirts and the caps. I'm sure everybody will be at Walmart tomorrow. More of Inside the Red Zone after the break. If you want to pour some champagne next to somebody you love right now, it's okay. Trust us. Very, very good feeling that Maurice Drummond is having a tough time staying dry up on the north side. He joins us now from inside Wrigley Field. Mo, what's going on, man?
Rob, very, very wet here at Wrigley Field. Joining me now is Larry Walker. Larry, how special is it to finally wrap this thing up?
Well, you know, everybody says we could have done it a few days ago, but the magic number's officially 0. So, you know, we didn't want to act like we knew it was coming. We wanted to make sure we got to 0 and it was good. And, you know, hopefully, like last year, this is, you know, hopefully the first of 4 celebrations. That's the goal, obviously.
You're right, Tony. Definitely stressed getting it down to 0. That's Julian Tavares giving a little something. That's cold, Larry.
That's cold on the head. You got no hair, it's cold. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't have much more hair to you, but...
It's well worth it, though. Oh.
David Eckstein trying to get to the action right now. Larry, this was a team that had so much to overcome in terms of injuries, including yourself. Talk about the injuries and talk about trying to overcome.
Well, you know, a lot of the kids came up and played their hearts out. You know, myself, Yadi, Scotty, Reggie going down. They came up and filled the void. Pitching staff, unbelievable. You can't talk enough about our pitching staffs. They're basically the ones that got us here and kept us in games. You know, we didn't have to score a lot of runs sometimes, and we maybe won a lot of games we shouldn't have, and that was because our pitching staff kept us in the game.
Jeff Suppan coming in, giving a little something. That's a great right arm for Soup. One more question for you. You haven't been a Cardinal for a long time, but how special was it to do it here at Wrigley?
Oh, geez, that's cold. Oh, it's cold on the bald head. Woo! Well, like I say, I've only been here a year. The rivalry between the Cardinals and the Cubs.
I think Larry is done, folks. Rob, we're going to... So to Gucci with the bucket. We're going to send it back to you. We're going to have a lot more for the Cardinals locker room.
All right, Mo, I appreciate it, man. Try not to sip any of that champagne that's getting poured out there. Remember, you got a job to do. But what's up with those glasses by Larry Walker? Looks like a bad version of Terminator X. Anyway, it was just a week and a half ago that Mark Mulder went up against Greg Maddux at Busch on the Hill. Mulder went the distance, giving up a pair of runs. Unfortunately, the Redbirds couldn't get one for Mulder. Much different story this afternoon. He got plenty of run support. We pick it up in the top of the first. Larry Walker was just getting poured on with all that champagne. He comes in with the first RBI single of the day, bringing in David Eckstein. That made it 1-0. Pick it up in the second. Mulder, look at that with runners on the corners. He's going to lay down the squeeze, and it works to perfection. Abraham Nunez crossing home plate to make it 2-0. Move now to the top of the third inning. Larry Walker again. See, this is why he got all the champagne poured on him, because he was just bringing in runs. Another single. That is going to bring home Jim Edmonds, who had doubled. That made it 3-0 Cards. Move now to the third. Mark Mulder K's Jeremy Burnitz to get out of a 2-out jam. Move now to the seventh. Cards pad on to their lead. David Eckstein going deep to the Ivy. That looked like it was almost out of there. Mark Mulder, he's trucking. He's a hustler. He's a hustler. Scores all the way from first, made it 4-1. Next batter, Jim Edmonds, opposite side. That's going to bring Eckstein home. That made it 5-1. Maddux's day was done after that, and the Cubs were pretty much done after that anyway, because when Izzy gets out on the hill, it is lights out. He's about to do his thing. That's the ground at the first, and that is Albert Pujols doing it all by his lonesome. Cardinals win it 5-1. They are your champs. Mark Mulder picks up the W. Larry Walker doing his thing. All right, the visiting Clubhouse at Wrigley is small, but that's okay because the guys are getting very, very close to one another right now, hugging and pouring drinks on one another, and on Mo, who joins us now with more inside the clubhouse. Mo.
Back here at Wrigley, Rob, here in the National League Central champions, St. Louis Cardinals, here now with Jason Marquis. Jason, you know, I'm looking at the way guys are kind of going in this locker room. Hey, that's cold. Is there a strategy for trying to avoid getting hit?
You just got to be lucky, try to hide in the corner and do a sneak attack and run away. But, you know, it's definitely fun. You want to be a part of it. And if you're not getting hit, there's something wrong.
You guys are now moving on to the playoffs. Some unfinished business, I take it.
Definitely. We got a couple of weeks left to go. We got to make sure we stay sharp and treat each game as its own and make sure we're ready to go into playoffs. There's no let-up.
This is a team that had to overcome so many things in terms of injuries. Would you say that this is one of the better jobs that you've seen from a manager in any level?
Without a doubt. Obviously, not only the manager, but every guy in this team. We all pulled together. You know, it seemed like night in, night out, there was a different hero, whether it was from the pitching to the bench to the starters. You know, it took 25 guys to do what we're doing this year.
You were part of a pitching staff that became the anchor of this team. Do you guys among men just talk about going out there and almost competing from day to day, almost trying to outdo each other?
I mean, I wouldn't say we try to go out and outdo each other, but we go out there every night and bust our butts and try to give our team a chance to win. And we prepare in between starts with the best of them. We sit down and talk pitching with each other, which is great. And it's a group of 5 guys that actually care about each other and want to see everybody do well. So.
One final question for you. You got a taste of that World Series last year. Talk about the unfinished business ahead.
You know, like we said, we still got to get to that point. We got a couple of games ahead of us before we reach that. And if we do, I think we're better suited that we've been there and we know what to expect now.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that, Jason.
No problem.
Jason Marquis here in the Cardinals locker room. Rob, let me tell you, this stuff is cold. Back to you.
All right, thanks a lot. I like how all these players had goggles over there. Everybody came prepared.
Last year, Mo and all those guys, they had all their swimming goggles on, so I think Carpenter and him set the tone. They know what's going on.
So you just got to be prepared, because they knew today was going to be the day. Yeah, I'm sure everybody felt like that.
Doubt. I mean, especially with Mulder going on, he's been decent, you know, gotten in a little rhythm. And, you know, with Larry Walker in the first inning getting a base hit, I think, you know, the guys said, you know what, let's do it on our terms. And that was good. You know, it happened to come out where they had to win. They won. They didn't have to wait for someone else to lose. And here we are celebrating.
And Tony said they weren't going to celebrate until the magic number was officially 0. It is 0, and they did it with a win. All right, when Inside the Red Zone returns, we're going to talk a little Cy Young. The nominees include that guy that you see on your screen right now, and he's made a strong case as to why he should win it. Stay with us.
Four years ago Monday, Albert Pujols broke the NL rookie RBI record. The slugging Cardinal has been driving in runs while driving St. Louis's bus ever since. This season, he's in the top 3 in all 3 Triple Crown categories, and he's first in the name of the game, that's scoring runs. Lately, soreness near his right heel has altered his stride, which has aggravated his hamstring, which didn't stop him from stealing a base Friday. The super strong MVP candidate will be afforded the occasional day off over the final 2 weeks of the regular season. Albert Pujols, the subject of our Sunday conversation.
To the right is a hitting machine. This ball is way out of here.
How do you assess your first 5 seasons as a big leaguer?
It's just unbelievable. I mean, you asked me this question in 2001, I would have told you that you're crazy for you think that I'm going to put these numbers. I mean, those numbers are great, and they're probably the best numbers ever in any Major League history, but I don't get caught up in those numbers.
Twice you've been the runner-up in the MVP balloting to Barry Bonds. With all the talk about steroid use and all of the accusations against Bonds regarding steroid use, what does it mean to you to have been the runner-up twice to him?
I respect him. He's the best player that ever played this game. When he retires, he's probably going to be the greatest.
It looks like a very tight race right now. We've got yourself, Andrew Jones, Derek Lee. Any one of the 3 of you could be the MVP this year. Who do you think is the MVP?
All 3. My goal is to get back to the World Series, and that my MVP hopefully be a championship ring, and that's what I think about it, day in and day out.
The sweep last year in the World Series, what is the feeling that still lingers from that?
I don't think we have that feeling. We don't carry that feeling no more because that is over. That was last year. Hopefully to get to the World Series and get a win. That's what I want. Get one win because last year we got swept, so I didn't want to think about it.
What do you expect from yourself when you go to the ballpark each day?
What I expect of myself? Just, I don't know, to play hard every day. You know, that's what I try to do. Keep respecting the game. And I don't want anybody to walk in and take my job until I retire. You know, that's the only way somebody's going to take my job because I want to keep working hard and keep being the best player that I can be. Before I even show up to the park, I got my game plan with the guy that I face that night. If it's Pryor, Maddux, whoever I'm facing, I already sleeping with that guy. I'm thinking the night before what I'm going to do. So when I come to the park, I'm just ready to go.
Who is the pitcher you fear the most?
I don't want to disrespect any pitcher, but I don't fear anybody. At the end of the day, hopefully I'm on top.
So who do you think's on the cover of this month's ESPN Deportes magazine? Why, it's that Pujols guy. Can't get enough of him. Can't get away from him. You can get ESPN Deportes magazine on newsstands now.
Sunday Conversation, brought to you by Subaru, a world leader in all-wheel drive technology. Think